Welcome to another episode of Science Snippets with Dr. Fuller. Today, we are going to talk about microbes. We'll learn what they are and how they grow. Then we'll set up a little experiment to test for the presence of microbes using some common household items. For today's lesson, you will need paper to draw on and something to draw with. For the experiment, you will need either a slice of bread cut into 2 pieces or a raw potato cut into 2 slices about ½ an inch thick. Microbes are tiny living things that are found all around us and are too small to be seen by the naked eye. We have to use a microscope to see them. They live in water, soil, and in the air. The human body is home to millions of these microbes too. Some of these microbes are helpful and some can be harmful. The most common types of microbes are bacteria, viruses, and fungi. Let's talk about viruses first. I think we've all had enough of hearing about viruses right now, but I'll show one micrograph of virus particles for you to look at. This is a micrograph of several coronavirus particles. These viruses have been stained with dyes so that we can observe the different structures. The yellow halo surrounding the virus is a protein coat. It's like a protective covering to keep the genetic material in. Those little fingerprint-looking smudges sticking out of the protein coat are spikes. They help the virus attach to a host cell. The dark blobs inside the purple part is the genetic material. This is the DNA or RNA that the virus wants to infect into the host cell. Here's a fun fact. Did you know regular soap can dismantle the protein coat? If the protein coat breaks away before a virus infects a host, the virus is less likely to be effective. This is why proper hand washing is the #1 recommendation to prevent the spread of virus. If you are interested in learning more about viruses, you can check out the first Science Snippet episode, which was all about viruses. You can find that video on the Let's Learn Cool Things YouTube channel. Now let's talk about another type of microbe, fungi. Does anyone know an example of fungi? Yes, mushrooms. So we're all pretty familiar with those. Another example is mold. Mostly today, we'll talk about the third kind of microbe, bacteria. Bacteria is characterized by its shape. There are 5 main shapes of bacteria. If you have your piece of paper and something to write with on hand, we can sketch them out together. I'll give you a description and you try to draw it from my description. Then I'll show you my drawing, and finally I'll show you a micrograph so that you can see what it looks like in real life. First up is spirilla. Can you say spirilla? So let's draw this one out. Spirilla-type bacteria look a little like wet spaghetti noodles. They're just thick, wavy lines. Often, they have little structures called flagella sticking out of the ends. I like to think of flagella as little bacterial lassos. They can act like propellers and help bacteria move, or they can be used to grab food and pull it into the bacteria's mouth to eat. So why don't you push pause here and draw out your version of spirilla, and then you can push play when you're ready to see mine. Here's my version of spirilla. You can see I've drawn 2 little flagella sticking out of each end. And now let's look at a micrograph. So this is what a spirilla looks like under a microscope in real life. Next, we have the coccus bacteria type. Can y'all say coccus? This one is easy to draw because it is a simple sphere, a nice circle. So pause here and draw your coccus bacteria, and then I'll show you mine. Here's what I drew. Simple. And now we can see coccus bacteria under the microscope in real life. You see how they are bunched up in groups? Coccus bacteria like to live in communities and are great at sharing resources with each other. Some famous types of coccus bacteria cause pneumonia, strep throat, and even cavities. Now we'll look at spirochetes. Can you say spirochete? Spirochetes are shaped like a corkscrew. Let's draw our spirochetes. Pause here and draw your own. Here's my spirochete. Spirochetes look a lot like spirilla, except that they don't have flagella and they are more rigid. You can see in this micrograph that the spirochete has embedded itself in the host cell. Spirochetes cause some really nasty illnesses. A spirochete is the bacteria that lives in ticks that is responsible for Lyme disease. The fourth type of bacteria we'll look at is Vibrio. Can you say Vibrio? Vibrio bacteria are shaped like fat commas. Let's draw this out. Vibrio usually have flagella to help them move around, so be sure to add a flagella to your Vibrio bacteria. Pause here and do your drawing. Okay, here's what mine looks like. And here's a micrograph of real-life Vibrio. Like spirilla bacteria, Vibrio bacteria is usually found on undercooked seafood and can lead to some serious tummy troubles if you eat it. All right, the last type of bacteria that we'll look at is bacillus. Can you say bacillus? Bacillus have a really boring shape. They are just these really plain rod-shaped things. To me, they look like cucumbers. So draw out your boring rod-shaped cucumber thingy right quick. You can pause here. Here's mine. I gave it a smiley face so it wouldn't be so boring to look at. Now here they are in a micrograph. The most famous type of bacillus bacteria is E. coli. Have you heard of that? It's everywhere. Some bacillus bacteria is very helpful, like the ones that live in our stomach and help us digest food, or the ones that make yogurt. Some can make us sick. We sometimes come across these in poorly prepared food or when we stick our fingers in our mouth and our hands aren't clean. Okay, now we are going to set up a little experiment to do at home. You should have your bread or potato with you at this time. Pause here if you need to go get it. Remember at the beginning of the video, I mentioned that bacteria can be found everywhere? We want to test this statement by looking for bacteria in common items at home. Now, bread and potatoes are made of things that common bacteria love to eat. Can you think of something both bread and potatoes have in common? Starch, that's right. They are both made of starch. Bacteria love starch. It is their number one energy source. Both potatoes and bread are nice and moist. The moist environment and the starch make these items perfect for bacteria to grow. When scientists plan experiments, we use a scientific process. This process is based on observations. I have given you the main observations for today. Number 1, bread and potatoes have bacteria food in them. Number 2, they are both moist environments, which also helps bacteria to grow. And number 3, as we mentioned at the beginning, bacteria is found everywhere. So, using these 3 observations, we now need to come up with a hypothesis. A hypothesis is a testable explanation for something that happens. So, I want you to think of 2 places in your house and hypothesize which of them has the most bacteria. Take a few minutes and think about it, and then write your hypothesis down. Feel free to pause the video here if you need more time to think about it. Now take your potato slice or one of your pieces of bread and wipe it all over the item that you think has the least amount of bacteria. Be sure you get your parents' approval before you do this. Do the same thing with the second piece of bread or potato on the place that you think has the most bacteria. Now put these 2 slices on a plate or tray and store them somewhere dark and quiet where they won't be bothered, like at the top of the refrigerator or in the back of a cabinet. Be sure they're out of the way. Then check back in 1 week and then again in 2 weeks to see if bacteria grew. Was your hypothesis supported? Did you predict the correct place with the most bacteria? If you want, you can take a photo when your experiment is done and leave it in the comments. Let me know how it went. Tune in next week as we learn about the Fibonacci sequence.